Hi there everyone, my name is Kenneth Diaz-Nigira. I am a solo developer working on a project called Mimicry, and welcome to my first devlog video. Now, this first video is actually the second video of videos that I've posted on YouTube so far. My previous video was an introduction to this program that you now see open, called Blender, and how to navigate and do things in Blender. Now, if you haven't watched that video and you want to follow along, then I definitely recommend you watch it and give it a try. But today, what we're going to be doing is making a game asset. Now, while a tree may seem like a leap too far and something that's quite difficult to create, I'm going to make it very simple and give you a step-by-step process on how we can do that. Now, I will be skipping around a bit, but I will make sure to keep in parts here that are important for you to know so that you can follow along and do things as you need to. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit Shift A, as you all know, brings up our add menu here. And today, rather than use mesh, we're going to go into curve and go down here to sapling tree gen. Now when this opens up, you'll see a tree here, but don't click on anything just yet because we still need to change this type of tree into the tree that we will be using instead. Now, when you open up the sapling add tree menu, which you'll see on the bottom left of your screen, there's going to be an option to load the preset here. If you're on any other sort of loading or setting here, do make sure that you click on the geometry and then go to load preset. And today what we're actually going to choose is going to be a Douglas fir. Now, closing this off here, I am going to come to the top right and hit toggle X-ray, and what we're going to do is go up here and look at our tree here. Now while this might look good and like something we can start working with, I particularly don't like the fact that with this curved tree there are branches shoved or jammed into the tree branch here. This is very bad geometry and is not what we're going to be using here. We're actually going to want to delete all these branches. Something else is that if we go into edit mode by selecting the tree and hitting tab, you'll see that our vertices are sort of everywhere and we don't really see a mesh, and that is because this is not a mesh, this is a curve. Now back in object mode, essentially what we're going to do is right click on this tree, making sure that it's selected, and come down to convert to and mesh. Now back in edit mode, you'll see that we have a mesh instead of the curve that we had a moment ago. Now I am actually going to go through it and start selecting these branches here. A would select everything, but we actually want to keep this trunk here. We just want to remove the branches. To do so, hover over the mesh and hit L on each branch here, and that will allow us to select just the branches for removal. Now once you've selected all the branches, you can simply hit X, and we're going to choose to delete vertices here. Now you may have a straggler here or there, that's fine. Just click L on those, hit X again, and delete those vertices there. And once you've made sure that you've gotten rid of all the branches, this is the mesh that we're going to be using. Now I've added another Douglas fir here. This does not need to be converted to a mesh because we are going to delete this. This is simply here to give us a rough guideline on how to orient our branches as we start working on this trunk right here. So I'm going to select this and go into edit mode, and I'm going to select actually from a front view, or rather a right side view, hitting the 3 on the number pad, and select right here on our branch. Now we can't actually get started just yet, but this is roughly the height that we're going to be starting with our tree here. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is add a modifier, which is something I haven't really talked about in my last video, but is a good example to show right now. What you're going to want to do is click on this wrench icon here, click add modifier, and today we're going to use the generate. I will make a video talking more about modifiers and things of that nature. But for today, all you need to know is that you're going to go on the Generate tab and click this one that says Subdivision Surface. Now, it doesn't look like our model has changed very much, but that's because we have to actually apply this subdivision surface to our model. So going back into object mode, which is the only state in which you can apply the modifier, we're going to click on this little drop down menu and hit apply. Now if we go back into edit mode, you'll see that we have actually a multitude of other vertices here on our tree trunk. This is going to give us enough vertices to start working with. Now the next thing that we're going to tackle is how to actually start adding branches to our tree here. So first thing I'm going to do is once again go into this side mode here, and let's get started right about here. So the way that we're actually going to affect the mesh on the tree here is by selecting vertices and moving them. Now I've used an add-on before called mtree, but it only works on a much older version of Blender and does not create pine trees like I would prefer. So we're going to create our own instead, and it is a good skill to learn. Zooming in here on this part of the tree here, what I'm going to do is select these three vertices here, hit G and Z to move these downwards like so. You're going to do the same to the top here, hitting G and Z, and move it up slightly. Once you've done this, you'll go and hit the number 3 and select each part of the mesh here. Hitting I, we insert. Hitting X, we delete faces. Hitting 2, we go back into edge mode and we select the rim here, holding down Shift and Alt, and we go into our loop tools and hit circle. Now if you don't have loop tools, a quick thing that you should know is if you go to your preferences and go to get extensions, you can type in loop tools here and actually install this add-on. Then when you go to your add-ons menu, simply go to loop tools. After you've added loop tools, it should work automatically as it is an extension from Blender. It'll simply show up at the top of your menu with a right click. Now after you've circularized the mesh, just a quick reminder that sometimes your mesh may be rotated like this. Simply hitting R and straightening it out is good enough, and we can scale this smaller or larger so that we can create branches. The other thing you may want to know is that hitting E will allow you to extrude parts of the branch here, and make sure that you're scaling pieces of the branch that you do pull out. It doesn't need to be anything too crazy. Our branches will be going downwards, much like our tree here, and if you want to add extra branches to your branch here, it would be the same process. Simply hitting 1 so that we can see vertices, we would then hit Ctrl R to add an edge loop, and I'm going to place it directly next to the pieces right here. Then as I get in closer, maybe by hitting 5 on the number key, allowing me to zoom in even more, once again hit 5 to exit this mode, I can now grab these 3 vertices here and adjust them with G. So we're just going to be careful as we move these up slightly, and the same goes for this right here. If this isn't perfect, that's not a problem, as long as you can select the faces that you actually need to deal with. Remember not to delete these faces just yet. You need to inset them slightly and then hit X and delete faces. Again, back in edge mode, Shift and Alt select, loop tools, circle, adjust your sphere so that it's correct, scale it down, and I'm actually going to rotate this way so that I can start extruding some branches here, making sure to scale those down as well as I move forward with this mesh here. And this is the process that we're going to be doing along the entire tree. You can also grab the entirety of the branch here. I definitely recommend doing so with X-ray mode so that you select it correctly. And with an R, we're going to rotate this slightly, hit G, and orient this so that it's facing the correct direction. Now, branches are not always perfect, but you do want them to remain mostly straight, much like our tree over here, maybe sometimes adding a slight bend to them. Now this may be a bit tedious, but I go up along the tree, coming at it from different angles, almost like a staircase, all the way up, just adding all these little holes here on the side of the tree that we will then circularize and start pulling branches out of. And now, once you're done filling up the tree with the tons of branches, also pulling out branches out of other branches like so here, we can move on to the next step. The hard part is over. So now I'm going to have a link in the description for the PNG that I will be using for this process here. What we're going to do is go back into object mode and not selecting any of these things here, we're going to hit Shift A, and we're going to add in an image. But we're going to add in an image as a mesh plane here. Now, you can go to wherever it is that you have your image. For example, I have it on my desktop at the moment, and it's going to be this pine tree branch PNG here. I'm going to import the image as a plane. Now, as you can see, our image here has not shown up. It looks like we have simply a flat plane here. But if I switch to viewport shading, you'll see that our tree branch has now appeared. However, it is still on this plane here. Now, if I select this here, what we're going to do is we're going to divide this plane into various shapes. Going to edit mode, I'm going to hit Control R, and let's divide it a few times like this. I'm going to middle click to set it directly in the center. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our knife tool here to start cutting out shapes on our image here, which will be shapes that we don't actually need anymore. If I hit enter here, that cut will have been made, and this will in of itself have become a face. Going back to my selection, for example, I can select here, click X, and delete this face, and it will get rid of it for us here. And there you go. So now that we've cut the plane this way, it is still completely flat, but is more just the leaves that we need here. Now the first thing that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab our cursor here, and I'm going to move it to the bottom or starting point of our branch here. Alright, now going back into object mode, if you right click on your screen here, you can set origin to 3D cursor right here. And that has moved our origin point from the center to this side where our pine tree actually begins. Now with that set up, what we're also going to do is go back into edit mode and hit the number 1 to go into vertex mode. At this point, you can actually start adjusting parts of the mesh here to make it not as flat as it currently is. Now, something I'm just going to do here is select a few edges that we don't need here. I'm going to actually dissolve those vertices. Alright, and after you've dissolved the vertices that you no longer need, it's now time to start affecting our mesh. So I'm actually going to select this here, and hitting G and Z, this will allow me to move this part of the mesh up. But as you can see, our plane here has been changed in shape slightly, and still looks pretty decent here. So next we're going to click on this little icon here that says data, and this is going to allow us to create vertex groups. Now you'll want to go into X-ray mode to make sure the entirety of the branch is selected here, and do make sure that you're only selecting branches, not the trunk. Again, holding down Shift, select the branches on the other side since our tree is in 3 dimensions, and it's not just going to have branches on one side of the mesh here. Alright, now that we've selected most of our branches here, what I'm going to do is click this plus button here where it says vertex groups. By clicking that, we have now created a vertex group, and I'm going to click assign. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to come up to where we typically switch between edit mode and object mode. If you click on that little drop down menu, you'll see that we have a mode here that's called weight paint, and we're going to select that. As you can see, our tree is now colored in various different colors here. Any color that is this dark blue means it is not part of the selection of our vertex group. Red is where things will be selected, and the key part here is that now you can get as close as you want with this little shader here and make sure that more of the branch that you have here is actually selected. Now do be careful, because it will start going into the trunk if you go too much and too quickly. But make sure that you are spreading this red part here a little higher up to the full opacity that it needs to be at for us on our branches as we make this tree longer. Now, once you finish the weight process with your tree here, the next thing would be to go back into edit mode and make sure that everything is assigned. If it helps you, you can go back in and select a lot of these vertices here, simply getting closer to your tree, ensuring that these are all part of the vertex group and are assigned correctly, although you won't need to considering all the weight painting that we just did. Now, after you've also ensured that everything is selected, we'll click assign once more. And I'm actually going to rename this group into branches right here. Alright, now the next thing for us to do is to go into particle properties, which will be this tab right here. And what we're going to do is create a new particle system here. You're going to select hair and advanced. Now we don't need a ton of particles here, so let's bring this down to about 5 and enter that in, and let's go into render. Alright, and what you just watched was actually part 1 of our tree building process. I'm trying to keep them short, around 15 minutes each, but I will be posting the second part in about 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that. We will continue and finish up our tree. The third part of the series will also be us putting our tree into Unreal Engine and setting up all the nodes there and things of that nature. So please stay tuned. Please like, share, and subscribe, and my social media links are in the description. Thanks for watching.